So yesterday, the NBA season officially ended with the Boston Celtics winning the NBA Finals in dominant fashion. Today, we're going to review every NBA season after the season's finished. Starting off with Atlanta, disappointed. This is not counting like any of the lottery stuff or whatever, because any offseason stuff, offseason rumors, whatever. Because the lottery, obviously, Atlanta had a great season, great result for the lottery. You know, obviously you win the number one pick. But when you pair Trae Young and DeJounte Murray together, you expect to be a I don't want to say competitive to win the East, but a playoff team at least. And 36 and 46, they were a playoff team like what the last 3 years. Missed the playoffs, end up as a 10 seed, still get the number one pick though. So obviously like it's all good in Atlanta. Boston, it was championship or bust, no matter how good this team was. I mean, unless this team broke the wins record, I probably would have still said they met expectations. I mean, you have one of the best starting lineups of all time. You win 64 games, you lose three playoff games, and it ends up being one of the best teams in NBA history. Top 10 to 15. Top 10 to 15, we'll say. Brooklyn, with the roster you had, it wasn't a great roster. You expected the McCall to take a step up. Claxton didn't play to the near defensive player of the year level he did 2 seasons ago. Cam Thomas had a great year, but the role players weren't as good as expected, and it just ended up being just a really bad season. Maybe a projected 39 to 43 win team ends up winning 32 or 33. I forgot. I think it was 32. And they don't have any of their draft picks yet. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard being a Nets fan. It really is. Charlotte, Met, didn't do anything. Weren't expected to do anything. Injuries are starting to become a real concern, though. LaMelo has been injured the past few years. Mark Williams has played 60 games in his 2 seasons in the NBA. Brandon Miller looked great, though. Brandon Miller looked great. You had the 6th overall pick, too, which may be a little disappointing lottery result, but you still could take, a really nice, role player piece for them. Chicago will go Met. Obviously disappointing you didn't trade any of your players, but that's not what we're basing it on. Zach LaVine gets hurt the whole year. You still play decent, still end up being the 9th seed. It's what Chicago is. They're a mid team. They're not a playoff team. They're the definition of a 9 to 10 seed. Cleveland Met. It kind of feels a little disappointing because so much expectation, so much weight, but it is a really young team, and they go out and win a playoff series, only lose to Boston. There should be changes coming to the offseason with Jared Allen, maybe Darius Garland. But there's still, if you sign Donovan Mitchell, it's there for Cleveland still. They're not there yet like championship level, but they have all the pieces and they're getting there. They're almost there. Dallas, obviously, when you make the NBA Finals after being a projected play-in team to start the year, even lower. I had them projected as a 10 seed, like a 40-win team. And with their deadline too, they ever since the deadline, what were they at before the deadline? The 7 seed, and the deadline they have this great deadline, getting PJ and getting Gafford, end up just making a 5th seed run to the finals. Obviously, the whole Kyrie Luka thing worked. Everything has worked well for the Mavs. Again, with even the Mavericks just made the finals and ran through the really tough Western Conference. But I put it in quote unquote. There's no face cam, but I don't know. Boston kind of bitched the conference championship or conference champion, but every team, not Boston and maybe not Denver, if they want to win an NBA championship next year, has to make moves, real moves, and that includes Dallas. I just hope they don't stay complacent. They didn't at the deadline. Hope again they try to get some more pieces because the team that made the finals may not even be a championship contender next year with the same roster, which is weird to say. But I don't know. Denver disappointed, 2nd round exit, obviously to a really I'm not gonna say young Minnesota team, an inexperienced Minnesota team. You go in with the expectations of this year being the favorites to win the finals or slightly below Boston, and you don't even make the conference finals. Obviously disappointing. Detroit had no expectation. Detroit had 10 to 12 seed expectations and somehow still disappointed heavily. And up with 14 wins and not even. And they get the 5th overall pick out of it. And I hope there could be. I think Detroit would be back next year, with who they draft, with money. They have a lot of money too, which I expect them to actually use the money to try to get better next year and try to make a push to the play-in. Try to get Cade some help. Warriors. What were the Warriors? I don't know. Are they disappointment? What were the Warriors? Yeah, I guess they had like playoff expectations and they end up being the 10 seed and losing. So yeah, I meant this. Yeah, no. Why am I even like debating if it's disappointing? It's a very disappointing year for the Warriors. And again, they're a team that's gonna need they have a very big decision to make whether they want to just ride Steph Curry's career while rebuilding, or just try to get a DeMar DeRozan, a Brandon Ingram, guy like that. Houston, I'll go exceeded. I mean, I think a 500 record, I say is exceeded, but the 11 seed I don't think is. I think the 11 to 10 seed was around their range with getting Fred VanVleet. Definitely disappointed this year, and with getting Dylan Brooks, and with like all the talent they had on this roster, with how deep their roster is, I probably may lean towards Met, but the future is so bright with going 500. I just have to give them. I mean, the West had so many wins, so like they definitely played better than or probably are better than their seed. No, definitely better than their seed, probably better than their record too. Indiana, again, obviously exceeded expectations. What maybe playing team, maybe they can sneak in as the 8 seed, be one of those teams that just bows out. No, go out and get Pascal at the deadline. Who now I've seen rumors that they are going to be able to extend them fully. So, I mean, yeah, Bucks, Knicks were injured, but they made the conference finals in the first half year with really this full core. The future is so bright in Indiana, and they made the conference finals. That's anything more. Any playoff win could have even been exceeded expectations, but making the conference finals, I think this team exceeded expectations more than any other team. I don't think that's stupid to say, except for this team. Clippers, it's every year. It's really every year is a disappointment. Since this Kawhi team, I think honestly the only team was the 2021 team when Kawhi got injured and they still made the conference final. That this team hasn't. With the injuries, it's just disappointment after disappointment. I honestly expect them to lose Paul George this offseason, and it's bad. It's bad. Lakers. I think they disappointed. What am I saying? I think every year is kind of like, oh, this is the Lakers team that's gonna get back to like the 3 seed, the 2 seed, 4, 5, whatever. Hasn't happened. Losing 5 in the first round. Is LeBron gonna leave? I think it's very interesting to see where Bronny goes and everything like that. How this offseason goes for the Lakers. But again, not even making it out of the first round. It's a disappointment. Memphis, I have to put in disappointment, but honestly, like you just had a ton of injuries, and it's just a really unfortunate year with your 3 best players going out, 4 best players going out for a pretty. Jaren Jackson Jr. played a lot, but Ja was out the entire year. Desmond Bane was out most of the year. Marcus Smart was out most of the year, and now you get a top 10 pick to like add to this core, and honestly. Vince Williams played super well this year. G.G. Jackson played super well. Your role player allocation or whatever, your role players that you have, the outlook for like all those guys are so nice. And now next year you're going to go and bring back a core that went to back-to-back 2 seeds. And you're going to have all these role players who are now super experienced NBA players because they got a whole season of starting and playing full games. And you're going to add perhaps like a Matas Buzelis or Donovan Clingan, who can potentially be like a really good NBA player to this core. It's like there's a lot to be excited for Memphis. It's kind of almost like the Colts when they lost Peyton Manning. They lose Peyton Manning. They playoff team lose Peyton Manning, get 2 wins, get Andrew Luck, go right back to where they were. It's just kind of one of those years of like we're gonna suck one year, get a high pick, and then we're gonna be right back. Get the missing piece, and we're gonna be right back. So it's not like a lost year for Memphis, but like it's impossible to say they didn't disappoint. Miami, yeah, I mean you just made a run to the finals, and then Jimmy's injured a lot of the year, and you win one playoff game. I mean maybe yeah, it's a weird situation in Miami. I expect them to either go one of getting a big star or trading Jimmy Butler. The Bucks, obviously, you had high championship allocation. What's the thing? What's the word? Oh my God, I'm blanking on the word. Oh shoot. Okay, whatever. Um, aspirations. Thank you. Jesus. Championship aspirations. You were like a top three team going into the year, and you lose in the first round. Yeah, Giannis is injured, James injured. The whole firing agent Griffin thing when they were 30-13. Doc Rivers comes, you're under 500. The Bucks were just a train wreck. They were a mess this year. They were an absolute mess this year. Minnesota exceeded projected playing team. They were an 8 seed 2 years ago, 7 seed. Sorry, 7 seed 2 years ago, 8 seed last year. Go in and make the conference finals, beating the reigning champions. So Minnesota, I think, could have put up a fight against Boston, but obviously Dallas destroyed them. So, I mean, yeah, it's obviously such a great year. Pelicans met seed 8 seed was I think they were around projected a playoff playing team, but they won 49 games, which 49 games would probably expect you to get a 6, 5, or 4 seed, but they end up being an 8 seed was 49 games. But like Brandon Ingram, I expect to leave. I expect some major changes to come to this team, but I mean it's still like a great year it's a stepping stone. Like you're winning games now, and they hadn't been winning games as many games as they thought they would at this point with the score. And also Zion was healthy the whole year. And I think if they do like Brandon Ingram for DeJounte Murray, get some type of lead guard, get Darius Garland, trade Brandon Ingram because I don't think he's going to resign because you have Herbert Jones, great wing, Trey Murphy, great wing. You have wings to replace him. It's there. It's getting there for New Orleans. Knicks obviously exceeded expectations. I mean, I actually in my preseason predictions had them at 50 wins, but I had them as a 4 seed was 55 seed or 4 seed was 50. I don't know. I had the East winning a lot at the top, okay? And they won 50 games. So that should be met, but like they were the 2 seed. So obviously, I mean they're 2 seed and a healthy team, a somewhat healthy team away from making the conference finals. They're not injured. Obviously, they probably win that Indiana series. Indiana series are obviously disappointing, but you win a playoff series, which you've done 2 years in a row now, and you're obviously. I just hope one thing. I don't like the Knicks, but one thing I'm from personal experience as a Nets fan, do not go and trade for Devin Booker. Don't do something stupid. Sign OG Anunoby, sign Hartenstein, maybe go out and get another piece. I don't think they're going to sign OG, by the way. It's looking like it's bad now. Saw a report maybe this morning, maybe yesterday, that they're very far apart. And with Philly lurking, Oklahoma City, who have the cap space to sign him and absolutely will sign him, I think they end up losing OG Anunoby. You're going to need to find a guy to replace him just because he's so valuable for you. So maybe, and just run. I hope the best case scenario is you literally just run it back and say we were just injured last year. Let's see how this team plays with OG, Randall, everybody together. Brunson, obviously. I just obviously I think it would be pretty funny for them to get Devin Booker and then they just falter out and it just ends up being like a mess as a Nets fan. But they for their own sake just don't do that. Thunder. Duh. Projected play-in team to number 1 seed. Obviously, the playoffs is a little bit disappointing, but I don't know how many people thought they actually would beat the Mavericks in a series. And with the picks, everything that Oklahoma City has, kicks, cap space, the young team. I mean, I hope they don't mess this up. It's like the easiest route to they're gonna win a championship one day, ever. Orlando projected out of the playoffs, end up being the 5 seed and take a really talented Cavs team to 7. They have money. I expect them to spend it. Paul George, Klay Thompson, Malik Monk. It's getting there. They're progressing in their rebuild super well. Philly, disappointed. No, that's not where it's supposed to go. Disappointed. Joel's injury sucked. It's also like not a Joel thing. It's a freak injury. He got his knee stepped on. It's not gonna happen again. Well, it could happen again, but the odds are so low that it happens again. It sucks. It happens. And now you have, but one thing is, again, Philly has money. They have the most cap space, second most cap space going into this offseason. They could get a Paul George. They could go after DeMar, blah, blah, blah. LeBron, maybe if you can get LeBron, get LeBron. But I think they should go after OG. Honestly, maybe take both Knicks because they can afford to. Go after OG and fill out your role players. Just get really good role players, and that's really it. I think they're back to being a championship contending team. Suns, I don't know the direction of this team. I expect them to run it back. Could they trade Kevin Durant? Could they trade Devin Booker? It's a possibility, but I don't think it's going to happen. But, like, obviously you come in with championship expectations. Now, I saw the team, everybody called them a super team. It's not a good team. It absolutely was not a super team. I thought they were like a 4 or 5 seed and like a second round exit, a first round exit. I did not like the team construction, and it was obviously worse than I thought. I mean, they still won 49 games. Again, it's a good amount, but like 6 seed, swept in the first round. It's over in Phoenix. I think the whole Suns being good in this thing is over. I think next year they're maybe around the same, maybe worse. It's still not going to be good enough. It was a fun run from 2021 to 2024 of saying like the Suns had championship expectations, but I think that's gone now. Well, they didn't have championship expectations, the Suns, until they made the finals, but in 2021, but still. Portland, there's nothing to say. Scoot was bad. He started to look better. They have picks. They have new guards. They have a lot of trade assets still, I hope. They should offload Williams 8-1 or both or something. Brogdon. They have picks. They have talent, young talent. They have a lot of tradable assets still. So the rebuild really is still just beginning for Portland. Kings. I mean, you're the 3 seed. Was it last year they were the 3 seed? Now I'm tripping. No. Yeah. Yes, it was last year that they were 3 seed. I think a lot of people was like, oh yeah, they were like really like the healthiest team in the NBA, and it's like wild to think about how healthy they were. I meant they had maybe a combined 20 games of injuries. So it was definitely a lucky year. I think people saw that. They still won 46 games last year, but not even making the playoffs after making the 3 seed. Not great. And you're going to lose Malik Monk for sure. They don't have the space. Should try to make a trade. I think they should try to make a move to try to get back while you have De'Aaron Fox, while you have Domantas Sabonis. Spurs, Wemby was amazing. Absolutely incredible. And Wemby was amazing. Wemby was absolutely incredible. Honestly, that's why I'm... No. We'll leave them at. Again, they weren't projected to be great. I had them as the worst team in the West. They were a little better than that, but the future. I mean, obviously, we know the future is bright in San Antonio. They have 2 top 10 picks, and they have Victor Wembanyama. Toronto did nothing. Traded OG, traded Pascal. So honestly, no. I said I was only to do it based off the season. They didn't do a lot this season, but they have guys. I mean, they have Scotty Barnes, RJ, Manuel Quickley. Sucks that they don't have their pick this year, but there's something there for Toronto. I don't really know their direction because they have they're definitely not like a top 10, or they are a top 10 lottery team, but they're not a top 5 lottery team. And you have all these I don't want to say mid players, but you have a lot of pretty good players. Scotty Barnes obviously should elevate into a really good all-star, but they're in a weird position where I don't think they're good enough. They're with the players they have, they're good enough to make a championship or win a championship, or honestly even make it past the second round, but they're not bad enough to make the lottery. So Utah, What did Utah finish this year? The Utah Jazz, what was their record this year? I don't know. They were about where they projected. Didn't they? Was it? I keep forgetting. Was it this year or last year that it was last year that they had that 13-2 start or whatever they had, and this year is no different. That meant they started off really well. Kind of. No, they didn't. They started off whatever. Then they had that really good stretch where they decided to win like 17 out of whatever, 25 games or something, and then went back. There's just you re-sign Lowry, and you have a lot of talent. You have a lot of young talent. Like Taylor Hendricks played great. Colin Sexton's still a guy you can either keep or trade. Keontae George played great. Have a top 10 pick. There's something there for Utah. And finally, Washington met. You were not the worst team in the league. You were the second. You were projected. I think everybody thought they were the worst team in the NBA coming into this year. They ended up being the second. So, around where everybody thought they'd be. So, I guess it really is just interesting. So many teams disappointed. You would say that disappointed. And then you have not a lot of teams that actually really exceeded their expectations this year, which I think is just pretty interesting, I guess. So thank you guys for watching. Join the Discord server. See ya.